And welcome back. As we continue working with the game, we're going to get ready to use our next little bit of logic to help us improve our game, which is using invoke. Now, with the invoke function itself, this functions effectively by calling a method that we can then execute after a delay of some defined number of seconds. So, for example, invoke method name, and then we give a delay in seconds. So, let's just say our method is, fire thrusters. Well, then we put fire thrusters inside of where the quote for method name is here, and maybe we want that delay to be, let's say, 1 second, and so we could put the value of 1 in there. If we compare this against a coroutine, this is another structure that we've talked about before. Invoke is going to be quicker and much easier to use because all we got to do is pass in the method name here. But one of the drawbacks of this is that it's going to rely on a string reference. Again, because we have to put the literal method we want to use in quotations here. And so where can we implement invoke here in our program? Well, if we look at our code, currently we have this option to reload a scene here. And the way the reload scene is currently working, if we think about it, is that it happens right away. Because, we play the game, we hit the trigger, boom, it goes and reloads it. But we don't want necessarily that to happen right away. We want to maybe give a pause for the player to realize, oh no, I've crashed, before we've started right back over. And so we can use the invoke to make that happen. So I'm going to use invoke. I'm going to add some parentheses here. I'm going to do a comma, and I'm going to give it a value. Let's just say 2f, which is our float. Now notice it does give me a angry bit here, so I have to put quotations around this, because remember, this is a string literal. And so I'm going to go ahead and put quotations here. And it does complain that there is a extra kind of parenthesis here, or quotation mark, and I can just clean that up. And so now this functionally is the exact same thing as what we had before. However, the biggest difference here is that we now have built in a delay of 2 seconds. All right, so let's go ahead and test that out just by go ahead and start that up. And let's go ahead and just try to crash. Doesn't matter what we crash into. Oh, but notice we didn't quite reset. All right, and that's because we have probably some issues here. So again, I'm going to go ahead and try that again. I'm going to try aiming right for that barrier. All right, so we have some issues that are going back to how our code currently is structured with that invoke. All right, and looking at my code here, I can see right now reload scene is kind of grayed out. It's because I made a small mistake here. I put parentheses here. So I need to take those parentheses out. You can see now it made the highlight. So that should fix that error there. All right, so if we go ahead and test our game again, I'm going to have this take off. Let's go ahead and just crash into something. Boop. And wait 2 seconds. And we've reloaded. Excellent. Now that we have that working, one of the things we're going to want to do is to effectively take a look at this line of code here and think about what we want to do future on, because later on we're going to want to be able to do things like particle effects or maybe sound effects or stuff like that when we crash. And so we actually want to break this out to its own method. So I'm just actually going to hit enter here, and I'm going to call this something like, I don't know, how about crash event sequence. All right, and so that's just going to be a method that we can have that's there. And of course, it doesn't know what this is, so let's go ahead and just generate that. And I'm just going to take our invoke piece, since we know that's what one of the things we want it to do. I'm going to take that, add that into my method. So I'm just going to remove that from here and copy and paste that to replace this throw exception. And now what it's going to do is it's going to call crash event sequence, which will then do the invoke here. Now, one of the things to keep in mind here is when, of course, I have my shuttle here and I go ahead and I do my crash. So I'm just going to go purposely crash into this. Notice I can still move a little bit before it does the reset. So over in our code, we're going to go ahead and actually take advantage of the fact that we coded up this crash event sequence by adding in our first additional bit of code, which is stopping the player from able to do more input. And so the way we can do that is we can actually get a component, and we're actually going to, if we think about what is the thing that is driving all of our movement right now, well, we have the player movement script. And so I can go ahead and add that player movement in there. And of course, if you had a different script name, then of course you would put that script name in here. And let's go ahead and look at this and tell it that if it is enabled, we want to set that to false. And so what that effectively does is it toggles that ability for us to give input from the player once we've done that crash. All right, so since we made that change, let's go ahead and test that out real quick. And so I'm going to take my player. I'm going to go have them flying over. Let's go ahead and crash into this wall. I'm pressing the keys, and nope, nothing happened. I could not stop that shuttle from tumbling there, so that was pretty good there. Boop, hit that wall. Again, I'm pressing keys, nothing happens. Excellent. Now, one of the next things I want to tackle is right now I have this reload value set to a hard-coded value. And if you remember, we don't really like hard-coded values, so let's go ahead and solve that by creating a serialized field. And we're going to make this of type float. And let's just call this our load level delay. And I can, of course, set that to my 2F that I had before. And if I, of course, put it there, I need to make sure I update it here because otherwise this is not going to use that value of what I'm going to end up setting in my inspector. And now that I've set it here, I can use this load level delay actually for other things, such as if I get to my finish line and I want to maybe have a delay before I immediately flip to the next screen. Now, just like we had gone through and created the crash event sequence, let's do the same thing here and let's create a like a success or finish or whatever you want to call it, about like a level end sequence. Let's just call this the end of level sequence. And just like before, we can go ahead and generate that. And I'm going to grab my load next level. I'm just going to cut that. I'm going to then replace this throw exception here. And then we'll just tidy up this little bit of code. Now, if we want to be able to use a delay, we have to structure it pretty much the same way we did here. In fact, I'm just going to go ahead and copy these right here, paste them in, and I'm going to take my load next level. I'm going to cut that part, replace reload scene, and let's just remove those extra set of parentheses there. And now we, of course, have set it up where, hey, if we reach the end of level, we want to disable player movement because we don't want the player to accidentally fly off the finish line after they've already done that. And we want to then invoke load next level so we can move then on to the next level of the game. All right, so let's go test this out by having our player. I'm going to go ahead and choose the starting level here because that's a nice, quick, easy one for us to test this on. If we go ahead and reach that base there, if we go ahead touch down on the finish line, see if we get our 2-second delay, boop, and there it goes. Excellent. So that's all working correctly. So we are well off to a great start here. Obviously, we can do things later on with looking at things such as implementing different sound effects and particle effects and things like that.